Hey, you guys, it's Stella Grizont from WUPA, and we're doing Work Happier Weekly. We're talking every week, 8:30 p.m. live Eastern Time, live on Facebook to talk about living the life worth living, doing the work worth doing. And last week, we were talking about the theory of well-being, which is Martin Seligman's, who's kind of the godfather of positive psychology, his answer or his response from a scientific perspective of answering what does it mean to live the life worth living. So last week we talked about how there's 5 components. It's not just one thing. It's not just about happiness, because happiness alone is not enough. Happiness, if we're just chasing after feeling good, that's what we're going to be doing, is chasing. We're going to be in a constant chase. And so positive emotion, because positive emotions are constantly emotions are constantly in flow. They're constantly changing. And so we can't just try to stay in that constant positive state. We can certainly do our best, but it's sometimes not even healthy for us to only experience positive emotions, because as we talked about last week, check out last week's Facebook Live. Negative emotions are signals. They're information. They help us understand our environment, and they help us understand when something's wrong. So if you are not performing well at work and you don't feel good about it, well, that feeling of not feeling good is useful because it will propel you into action. So, hey, you guys, thanks for joining. So today I want to talk about what does it mean to actually be engaged and how to get more engaged. Like, that word is tossed around so much in corporate lingo. If you're a leader, you're charged with engaging your team. And that's such a popular buzzword. And it's where I end up doing a lot of my work, is helping bring people alive in their work environments. So we know from a Gallup poll, that about 7 out of 10 workers in America are unengaged. That means they're checked out, they're not giving their best, and they'd probably rather be on Facebook than actually doing what they have to do. And around the world, the number is actually even higher. It's about 8 out of 10 workers. So this is a real problem, because where we spend most of our waking lives, we're checked out. And the truth is, we all want to be engaged. We all want to feel challenged in just the right way. It doesn't feel good when we're not engaged. That feels icky to all of us. And so that's when there's a conflict, when we can't quite apply our psychic attention, our mental attention in a way that we desire. That creates a little bit of a rub. So I want to talk to you today about the Uber form of engagement, also known as flow, which is a term dubbed by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Say that 3 times fast. And he did all the original research on flow and has really studied people who, from athletes to musicians to just the average Joe, to really understand, what is it about that state when we just get lost in time, when we are just feeling so one with the universe and the environment and whatever it is we're doing? What's going on there? And how do we reproduce that more often throughout our day so we're not feeling bored or anxious? So I wanted to talk to you about what he discovered, and he found that there are 7 main components to flow, and I want to take you through each of those. And I don't know, can I share my screen on Facebook Live? Because I'd love to show you guys some slides. I can't figure it out right now, so we're just not gonna. If any of you guys watching know how to share my screen, let me know. All right, so how do we experience more flow? To be in flow, which you've probably know what I mean. It's when you are just absorbed in what you're doing in a really good way. And you could be so absorbed in it that you forget to eat, or you don't notice who's walking around you, and you don't really care. And it's just about what you're doing next. And so we know that this is very easily accomplished when maybe you're involved in some kind of athletic challenge. For example, rock climbing, people get into a flow, or on a run, or if you're surfing. You could also get into flow when you're washing the dishes, or when you're coding something. If you're an engineer, like, they get into the flow a lot. And so really anyone with anything has the capacity to get in the flow if certain conditions are satisfied. So the first condition in order for you to get into flow is to have clear goals. It's really important to know what's next and what am I aiming towards. And so thinking about your work environment right now, a lot of you guys don't have clear goals. Sometimes we're told that we just have to go and do something, but we're not really told exactly how or what success really means. And so it's really important for us to have clear goals. The second thing is that it's really important for in the pursuit of those goals that the challenge is just right. If you have too big of a challenge for your skill set, then what happens is you're overwhelmed, which we've all been there. If you have too low of a challenge for your skill set, that means you're bored out of your mind. You're like itching in your skin. It's not comfortable. In fact, by the way, being bored is actually a state of stress. It's not just something that you get through at the DMV. It's actually something, if you have chronic boredom, it can diminish years off your life. So it's a problem. It's not just something that happens. Sidebar. So we want to have clear goals, and we want to have the right amount of skill to meet the right amount of challenge. And we need to be challenged. We need the challenge to be just a little bit above our skill set, because that makes us want to reach higher. That's how we kind of get immersed. So think about a video game. If it's totally easy, you're not interested in playing. You need to have that little bit of challenge, but not so much where you don't know the rules. The third component or condition that helps you get into flow is to have instant feedback. And this doesn't have to be necessarily feedback from your boss. It could be feedback that you can give yourself, but you need to know how you're doing in the pursuit of your goal. And with each move you make, you need to have a sense of, am I making progress? For those of you who have a team or a manager that isn't great at giving feedback and you'd like some more, consider asking for it. I have a whole blog on how to ask for the appreciation you deserve. And Sean, I don't know if you can find it for us. I know you're on here. Can you see if you can find the link, and then we can share it in here? I think it's 4 ways to ask for the appreciation you deserve. That would be really good for you guys. So, but the other thing is, if you're not getting the appreciation you deserve, or the feedback you deserve, whether you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, how might you build that in for yourself? What information can you give yourself about your own progress? All right, so the next component after feedback is having a complete field of concentration, which almost sounds so rare now, because when we're looking at our screens, there's constantly 3 things buzzing, begging for our attention. If we're not on our screen, our phone is usually nearby making all sorts of noises, or there's just other people who interrupt all the time. And so in order for you to get into the flow, to get into that sweet spot where you're completely absorbed in what you're doing and feeling fully engaged, you need to have some very clear, dedicated space to allow for you to concentrate. And so how might you take responsibility for your own level of focus and concentration? What can you really turn off? And you know you can turn off some things. Maybe it's setting away messages, being more diligent about blocking things, blocking time off on your schedule and really meaning it. So what can you do to support yourself in having a clear and clean field of concentration? The next component that's really important for us when it comes to flow is control. This is not control, not from the control freak kind of meaning of control, but it's more a Buddhist Zen kind of version of control. It's a sense of actual surrender. So I am so at peace and cool with whatever is going to happen because I'm so confident in my own kind of place here. So it's a funny version of control. It's the kind of control where you're so powerful that you can let go, which is the real juicy place to be. All right. And then the next component when it comes to experiencing flow is to just lose track of time. So when you're really experiencing flow, you're like, oh my God, I just started and it's already, and then you look at your watch and it's 3 hours have passed. So when we are in flow, we actually are, we could just end up forgetting going to the bathroom. That's how absorbed we are. And we hear about people when they're playing video games, how they're so immersed in the game that they can go without sleep, without going to the bathroom, without eating, and how actually it is very harmful. So there actually are good versions of flow or healthy versions of flow and not so healthy versions of flow. And so we want to lose our attention into maybe something that you're consciously choosing instead of something that is addictive. And finally, the most wonderful component of being in flow is a loss of self, which sounds kind of scary, but actually is where I think most of us want to be, in that we're not worried about what's so and so gonna think, or what does this mean about me? Am I good enough? It's like all those thoughts that go off in our head. So when we're fully engaged, we're not worried about our ego. Our ego is not there. We're fully present. So that, my friends, is another big word for being engaged. It's just being truly present with a capital P. Because if you allow yourself to really sink into the present moment, you actually cannot help but be engaged, but be ignited, but be lost in this moment right now and right now and right now. So usually what takes us out of flow is our emotions. There was a Harvard study done that found that 50% of the time we're doing something, we're thinking about something else. So we're not present. And the number one driver of that distraction is our emotions. And guess what kind of emotions really like to distract us? Our negative emotions. And why do they want to really distract us so much? Probably because we're trying to ignore them. Probably because we're trying to push them away. So that's why in last week's Facebook Live, I talked about the importance of being with your negative emotions, because they're like children. They are going to yell and scream and get really big until you pay attention to them. So I would add, if I'm so bold as to add to Csikszentmihalyi's list here of the components of flow, I would probably add something about your ability to either be in a positive state or at least a neutral state when it comes to your emotional place. So any questions, you guys? I see a lot of people just joined. Hey. Anybody having trouble getting into the flow? I will tell you one thing that happens all the time that distracts us from also getting into the flow is we have resistance. So maybe we're embarking on a project that we really really want to do. Maybe, for example, I'm writing a book right now, and boy, hey Lori, thank you for the nice words today, by the way. And so I'm writing a book, and boy, do I want to be in the flow, and boy, does it take so much for me to get into that space because there's resistance. And Stephen Pressfield, he's the author of a book called the is it the War of Art or the Art of War? I probably mentioned him before, but he talks about how any creative endeavor that we engage in, it's natural for resistance to show up. It's almost like a natural balance to the creative endeavor itself. It's like a natural force. And so if you're feeling resistance, instead of judging it and beating yourself up for it, for why aren't I feeling in the flow, or why can't I engage? Why am I procrastinating? Why can't I just do this? Instead of punishing yourself, just notice, oh, maybe I'm having resistance. This is actually a natural part of the process of me moving towards creating something that's meaningful to me. Usually, the more meaningful and more at stake there is in a project, the more resistance we have. And so what you can do is go through and try to create those conditions for yourself so that you are more likely to step into flow. What really helps me in writing my book was actually leaving my house and renting an Airbnb for 2 nights. And I got in there right away because I had full concentration. I didn't have distractions. It was lovely. So as you go throughout your week, and if you are feeling bored, anxious, and you can't quite get into the flow, feel engaged, consider how might you ensure that you have clear goals, that you have that the challenge that is up for you meets your skill set. And if it doesn't, what do you need to modify? Do you need to improve your skills, or do you need to increase the challenge? Consider how you might get instant feedback on your progress for those goals. Create a pure field of concentration of time where you can just be fully focused. And consider how might you allow yourself to surrender into the moment and just let go, and watch yourself lose track of time, and don't worry about what does this mean about me. Just try to take that next step. And that's it, you guys. This was a little longer than I thought it would go, but cool. All right. So, any questions? I'm so happy to answer questions. Any comments? Did this make sense? Does this feel applicable? I always love hearing what you guys think. Yay, I'm seeing some love. Okay. So, what I would like to share is there's a lot of things if you're interested in learning more about what I do. I've had a few podcasts and webinars be released this week. So my interview with Dave Asprey just got, why is there a sad tear that just came up with the emoticon? So my interview with Dave Asprey just came out. He's the bulletproof executive. He's the guy, the biohacker who puts butter in his coffee, and he does all these really cool things. His goal is to live till 180. If you want to learn more about that and hear about our conversation about how to fall in love with your work, you can do that. I think if you go on Facebook, either on my personal profile or Whoopa, the link to the podcast is right there. Or if Sean, if you're still here, if you could post that too, that would be great. And then we also have curiosity.com. I talk about how to master difficult conversations, and they have a really quick 10-minute clip, which is really easy to listen to if you're on the go. And curiosity.com is really fun. You can get lost and totally in the flow being on their website because they have all these really fun factoids and explanations to the world around us. And then what else? I did a webinar on happify.com about how to set goals and stick with them. And I believe that is being, if it hasn't already, released today. So you could just Google Happify and Stella Grizont if you are interested in that. And I don't think Sean is here anymore right now to post these links. And I really got to get on top of having these links ready for you guys. But you could also always join my newsletter, and that's where I send out everything, and you'll be on top of all the trainings that I do and fun stuff and tips every week that I have. So, with that, thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful night, and may you be in the flow. And next week, we'll be talking about uh, relationships, because that's the third pillar in the theory of well-being. Remember, PERMA. So we covered the P, positive emotion. We just covered the E for engagement. Next week is R. Okay, bye.